Steve Riddle, we're here to talk about the men's Money in the Bank. Out of 10, how excited are you for this match?
I would say probably like an eight, 8.5. Usually the Money in the Banks are always very exciting matches, regardless of who's in them. And I think this year's men's match has a very unique group of talent involved.
Not a lot of star power outside of Seth Rollins, but an interesting kind of talent to go through. Let's go through that right now. First, Andrade. Andrade qualified by defeating Jacob Fatu and Carmelo Hayes. Is Andrade the right pick out of those three for this match?
I mean, really, all three of them could have gotten a spot in the match. I understand partially why they didn't have Fatu in because they want to maybe do something with him in solo. And considering Carmelo had won the Andre Battle Royal, it seemed like he was getting set for a big push. So it was kind of weird to see him lose here. But I mean, Andrade is good enough guy to be in the match.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of the glue of the match, not really likely to win, but he's a guy that can take a blow, deliver a blow, be acrobatic, be a strong base. This is low key like a lucha match and he's like a lucha king, so that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of lucha, El Grande Americano, they qualified last night defeating CM Punk and AJ Styles. Out of those three, was El Grande El Americano the right pick?
Well, going in, I kind of thought Punk was going to win
I did
because
too.
of the thing with Rollins, but I mean, it makes sense that Rollins would cost him the match. Kind of shocking they didn't give, considering it was actually AJ Styles' birthday yesterday, they didn't give him a win. Considering this event's the same day as the Worlds Collide event, which is right before it, you obviously want to give Americano something big, considering his biggest fan Chad Gable is going to be challenging for the what was it, the AAA Mega Championship, I think it was,
Yeah.
against Vikingo. So that makes it for an interesting day of storylines there.
Nice flow line, right? Chad Gable was kind of like the favorite last year to win it, and everyone's favorite. Like, I hope he wins, right? Now it's like, I wouldn't be mad if he won. We'll kind of get into that as we go. But the last luchador here is Penta. Penta defeated Chad Gable and Dragon Lee to qualify for this match. Is he the right pick out of those three?
I mean, I'm sure everyone thought probably Gable was going to win that one, but I think it makes more sense that that he didn't. I definitely think Penta was the better choice. Not that Dragon Lee's would have been a bad choice, because I
Yeah,
think because I remember watching that match, and it was actually Dragon Lee, I think, really
he
showed
was
up in that
excellent.
match. I mean, he was
Yeah,
great, and but clearly, Penta's still kind of the hotter guy. So again, it makes sense for him to kind of get in the match.
yeah. Dragon Lee, he looked like he's in a contract year, hence he is, right? So it's like it was a big profile match for him to kind of go out there and show what he can do because he's kind of lost in the shuffle with Phoenix and Penta and all these AAA guys coming around. It's just like, all right, let's show who we are here, and I'm interested. I hope he has a good 2025. All right, the next guy here, Seth Rollins qualified by defeating Sami Zayn and Finn Balor. Was he the right choice out of those three?
Yeah, I guess yeah, he kind of was. I mean, if he's doing this whole thing where he's trying to, in essence, take over Raw, as it were, um, he's got to be in that position to where he can potentially win this briefcase and then cash in, because he already had his title shot against Jay, and Punk screwed him out of it. So
Yeah.
it's just gonna fuel his anger and fuel his desire to be the top guy on Raw again.
So, all right, and then the last or second to last here, Solo Sikoa qualified by defeating Jimmy Uso and Ray Phoenix. Out of those three, is he the right pick?
Would have liked to seen Jimmy in the match, considering
Yeah.
that I think Jay was in it last year. So it would have been nice to kind of give Jimmy a little bit something, because he seems to be, you know, floating aimlessly while his brother's, on top as world champion. And that would have also been made for an interesting storyline if Jimmy had been in the match and won the contract while his brother was still champion.
Just don't think he's big enough star. He could be in the
Yeah,
match, but yeah,
I
uh,
know, but I mean, if they wanted to go that route,
no
um,
doubt.
but I mean, again, I think of the three, I think you know, as much as I'm sure a lot of people didn't like it, I think Solo was the right guy of the three.
It goes with the Fatu story, right? As Fatu lost too, it kind of goes with that.
Yeah. Plus, I don't think they wanted if they wanted Penta and Phoenix in a match together, they want them as a team, not as opponents.
Yeah, that's a great call too, right? All right, and then the last one here, LA Knight qualified by defeating Aleister Black in Pinsuke Nakamura, another bad pin joke, but I assume he was the right pick for you.
So I mean, it would have shocked me if they decided to go with Alistair, just because he's just returned, and you know maybe they want to give him something, big match for returning. But yeah, Knight was the right choice.
All right, I'm gonna count down or count up 6 to 1, 6 being the least likely, 1 being the most likely, in my opinion. And then you just give me what scenario off my scenario for each guy. And then at the end, you give me your pick. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The least likely guy, in my opinion, to win this match is Penta. Not necessarily because he is the least popular or the least dynamic or whatever. It just feels that he's in this match to kind of squeeze out the last singles run he has. And in a scenario for him to win would be maybe he wins Money in the Bank and then goes cash it in for like the IC title on Dom Mysterio, right? Like that would be his ceiling as Mr. Money in the Bank. And I think he's just the least likely to win.
Yeah, I think he has a better likely shot of at some point during the match unmasking Americano to reveal him as Chad Gable than he does to win the briefcase. So I definitely agree with I think
And also,
Penta's
that's could be why he's in the match too, right? To play into that too, right? So yeah, perhaps. All right, the 5th likely to win this match is Andrade, in my opinion. Andrade could be a Jey Uso challenger if they want to kind of ramp him up from a heel version. If there's a draft or whatever, give him a briefcase, and then he kind of turns heel, and then he challenges Jey Uso for the belt. But I don't see him winning. Or if he wanted to kind of challenge John Cena on like a SmackDown for the WWE title. But other than that, I don't see Andrade winning this match, or I don't see the briefcase doing much for him. I'm not sure what he is in 2025 in the WWE.
Yeah, he's kind of. I think you said it earlier. He's kind of the base of the match where he's going to pull out some of the big spots, and he'll get close like maybe once or twice. But at the end, he's probably I think it would be considered a very, very big upset if he does win. Although I honestly would not be surprised if many people considered him a dark horse.
True. Yeah, if they're ever going to do anything with him, this would be kind of the time to do it. All right, number 4 here is Solo Sikoa, and it would just be when Fatu's down. He cashes in the briefcase and steals the U.S. title from Fatu once Fatu was kind of not least expecting or down on his luck or whatever. And it would not be a WWE title thing; it would be a mid card cash in.
Yeah, Solo his main event run is I think has come and gone, and I mean I'm sure he'll look fine in the match, but I think but yeah, if he does end up winning, like you said, it'll probably just be like he turns off Fatu because it's coming that Fatu's gonna get gonna turn face eventually and feud with Solo and with JC Mateo. So
yeah,
that's what everyone's waiting for.
I just don't necessarily see him. All right, those are my bottom 3 out of 6 competitors. Do you agree with that bottom 3? Not necessarily in order, but the tier of the bottom guys here.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, the 3rd most likely to win this Money in the Bank match, in my opinion, is El Grande Americano. And I think he would do a lot of things. And then maybe even Chad Gable could cash in and win a WWE or the world heavyweight title. That's like the absolute ceiling. He could steal it from Dom, since Dom's the one that kind of got him going on with this luchador run, sending him to Mexico or whatnot. So that'd be a completely full circle thing. Well, Grande wins and then kind of cashes it in and wins the IC, and in a way that Dom did not see coming. Or he goes on and loses to Vikingo earlier in the day, and then the week later at Triple Mania, he cashes in there and wins the AAA Mega Championship with El Grande as the cash-inner. So what do you think is El Grande being 3rd in those scenarios? And what do you see out of him?
Well, you actually stole the thought out of my head because I was thinking that myself, that he would win, that if he does win, he could take it to the next AAA event and cash in there as Americano. I mean, because again, like I said, the whole thing with him and with Chad Gable is eventually that somebody, whether it be one of the luchadors of WWE or AAA, is gonna unmask Americano and reveal him as Chad Gable.
There's a payoff coming, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be, or maybe it's gonna be one of those things where, as Americano, maybe he says, everyone expects me to cash in when the champion's down, but I'm gonna be an honorable, I'm an honorable American. I'm gonna cash in advance and say, I'm gonna, I'm calling my shot at Triple Mania. Maybe the champion, if it's still Vikingo, says, okay, well, if you do that, then you got to put your mask on the line and finally reveal to everybody,
a mask match coming
who you are. So I wouldn't be completely surprised if he won. I think I think putting him at number 3 is a good spot because I think the other two ahead of him have a better shot. But again, considering where this whole thing with AAA is going, it would not fully shock me if they decide to pull the trigger and give it to Americano.
There may be no scenario where the booker, Triple H, or the booking team likes a Money in the Bank cash in on the men's side. So this brand new partnership with AAA, let's use it in that way, and it will be really fun, and it will go a long way for AAA, and that's our new investment. So let's kind of do that, right? So it would make sense.
Right. Plus, it would set a new standard that just because winning the Money in the Bank does not limit you now to cash in on your own company's titles. Now you can go to another company's
Yep.
company and challenge for their title.
So it would be pretty cool, right? It would be like I wouldn't hate it whatsoever. I think it would be fun. All right,
Mm-hmm.
number 2. I'm going to go with my brain here for number 1 and not my heart. My heart would be with number 2, LA Knight. I want him to win the match probably the most out of these 6 competitors. And I feel that it's a trope, but it's an old trope where if you're on a losing streak heading into a match like Money in the Bank, that you'd be kind of the winner and you would continue that losing streak until you cash in, right? And that's kind of like a weird Vince trope that they don't necessarily do anymore. But this is his 3rd Money in the Bank match in a row. I think the fans are still clamoring for him. He's been through a lot of chest trials and tribulations. I feel that he has passed them all. Maybe he's not as hot as he was 2 years ago, but he's still over like Rover and very hot. And in this Money in the Bank briefcase could heat him up just as much. And I could see him being like a call your shot John Cena SummerSlam opponent. Number 2, LA Knight. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's probably the sentimental favorite for everybody. Like you said, still very over. I mean, he was just he was just a victim of bad timing because
Yes.
the fans wanted Fatu to win the U.S. title. And at Knight was just the guy that just had to be the transitional champion. But like you said, he's still very over. Like I said, maybe not as over as he was a few years ago, but he's still getting a great reaction.
It would work.
Yeah, it definitely would work, and I think he could definitely, it could be one of those things where he wins the briefcase, and then he and Cena have like a nice little back and forth. Where Cena is kind of like, I've seen plenty of guys. I've been in this business for 20 plus years. I've seen many guys like you come and go, and you're all just flash in the pans that get hot for a little bit, but then just fade into obscurity while I'm still here, making everything relevant. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it would be, even though he probably, if he were to cash in on Cena, he probably wouldn't win it. I
Yeah.
think he would definitely give Cena a good match, and maybe even give for that moment, give you a notion that maybe he could win. Although the other downside of that is, he's already lost a couple of big world title matches previously. If he does cash in and loses again, does that pretty much kill any potential for him as a main eventer? And he just stays kind of like locked in that mid card, upper mid card level for the rest of his career. So I think that that has to be kept in mind. But like I said, I think he is definitely the sentimental favorite of everyone, and I think there will be a lot of people that do get very excited if he does end up winning.
Yeah, 2 more things. It's in LA, that would be cute for LA Knight to win in LA. And then
Hmm.
again, I wouldn't rule it out as like a heelish cash in on Jey Uso and kind of shock everyone, right? So that could be a cute way to kind of get it off Jey too. So I wouldn't rule that out because we've never seen him as a heel on the main roster, really. Well, we have, but like
Yeah.
not in we've seen him more as a face, right? So I think if like a pushed heel, I think he'd be very effective.
Right. Yeah. When he came on the main roster, he was still kind of a mid card heel. Once he started getting like the fan support behind him, was when he turned
Yeah,
face, and since then he's been the mega face.
no doubt. All right, number 1, go with my brain here. Seth Rollins is the probably most likely to win this match, in my opinion. He has the new group around him. He has Jey Uso in his targets. I don't think 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever that was, we had that Raw match impromptu. I don't think that was by mistake. And I think that if he were to cash in, Gunther would have to be on alert because he could be doing it that night in Phoenix, the next night on Monday Night Raw. So, what do you believe that Seth Rollins is the favorite here?
Yeah, definitely. My thought, my thought process on that was the fact that should be no surprise that they decided to book the Uso Gunther rematch on Raw 2 nights after.
Yep.
So all signs could point to Jay retaining over Gunther. Gunther just snaps and destroys him, and then Rollins takes advantage and steals the title, and then you set up, but Seth and Jay for potentially for SummerSlam.
Or they protect Gunther, and he has like another heist of the century type of thing. Does it mid match, turns it into a triple threat, right? So
true, because then you could set up Rollins and Gunther, because then Gunther be like, hey, you screwed me over, because they've not feuded, they haven't feuded yet with each other, and that's that has potential to be great matches.
I
And
don't
then of
think they've ever
course,
really touched. Maybe Survivor Series like in 2019 or a Rumble, right? But I don't really think that they've touched. So that's like a low-key dream match too, right? So
right, yeah. And then of course and then obviously you have the outliers. You got Sammy in the wings. You got Punk waiting in the wings. Because obviously that's the big one. It's obviously they're building towards Punk and Rollins at some point, because we still have not gotten that singles match yet. So
yeah,
so I think
1-1 in singles matches, right? Netflix and the MSG, both on Raw, so they could be building for something there for sure.
right. So I think logistically, all signs, as much as we can complain about predictability, all signs are, I think, pointing to Rollins becoming and then that's another thing you can hold over Punk, that because to this point Punk has been the only 2-time Money in the Bank winner, and it's the only one that can't
The Miz-ish kind of.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, he didn't win in the Money in the Bank match. He
No
beat
doubt, no
he
doubt,
beat
yeah.
Otis for it, but then Rollins can say, I'm also a 2-time Money in the Bank winner, and I'll also be a 2-time successor of cashing in. So,
but also, Sami Zayn and CM Punk are not booked for the pay-per-view as of right now. They could be anything goes in Money in the Bank, so they could be the equalizer there too to lead to something else, right? So just put that there. Keep that in mind as we're at the end here. I'm still going to play it safe and go Seth Rollins, even though my heart's telling me to pick LA Knight.
yeah, I think conventional wisdom says it's Rollins, but I think fan dream is Knight.
Yeah, no doubt. All right,
With
Steve,
Americano on the fringe.
He's at that like A minus B plus tier for sure, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, Riddle, it was fun to have you on, buddy. Thanks, pal.
Thank you.